BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello, I'm Martin Dowden. This is the Scottish Football Podcast on Thursday, the 14th of November, and here's what's on the agenda today.
It's a lovely ball through. Celtic are in here behind. Chance for Celtic to open a scoring. They've done so! Listen to this scoreline. Celtic 1, Chelsea 0.
We'll have reaction to last night's 2-1 defeat for Celtic against Chelsea in the Women's Champions League. Also,
it's a good ball. There's the equaliser. And George Oakley not holding back in his celebrations as he side foots air level.
What should we be looking out for in the Championship and lower leagues this weekend? And
I have a massive belief in young players. You have to find the balance between that and the experienced players within your group or your starting 11, but if you do so, you can really see growth in your football club.
We hear from Scotland Under-19s head coach Neil MacFarlane about the importance of clubs trusting young players and combining his national team role with working at Brentford.
The Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sports Scotland. I'm
joined by Craig Telfer, the host of A View from the Terrace. Craig, thank you very much for joining us. How are you doing?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Delighted to be here. Thanks for having me.
We are also going to hear from Neil MacFarlane later. But before all that, let's quickly run through the latest Scottish football headlines. Chelsea came from behind last night to narrowly overcome Celtic and remain top of Group B in the Women's Champions League. The London side made a host of changes for the game in front of over 7,000 fans at Celtic Park and were made to work hard to maintain their 100% record with a narrow 2-1 victory. Scotland's concluding Nation League matches against Croatia and Poland will again be broadcast on YouTube. Follows the same arrangement as the matches in October, with the loss to Croatia and draw with Portugal attracting more than 1.5 million views combined on the social media platform. And plans for a battery energy storage system linked to Inverness Caledonian Thistle FC have been refused permission by a Scottish Government-appointed planning official. The club was placed into administration last month and there have been efforts to find a buyer. Now, let's start with Celtic 2-1 against Chelsea last night at Celtic Park. I was there. I took my eldest daughter along to see it. Magnificent for her to see a game in a stadium like that in front of that crowd. Craig, what did you make of the result and the performance?
I think the result might not necessarily be a surprise. I think that everyone going into this game would have expected Chelsea to have won the match. They're one of the dominant forces in European football, flying high in the WSL, and there's quite a clear gap in quality between Chelsea and Celtic. However, I think that Celtic should be absolutely delighted with the calibre of the performance. There were long periods where they didn't have the ball. I think they'd be disappointed with the calibre of the goals that they conceded. On the whole, though, I think they competed well. Chelsea had to work hard for it. You could see that with the changes at half-time, having to bring Lucy Bronze on to try and give them a bit of impetus. But I think everyone will be connected with the club, should be really pleased that they, at least for a couple of minutes, had the lead against Chelsea.
Yeah, the vibe actually being there was that this could be 5, 6, 7 before the game kicked off. And to go ahead in a game like that as well, get their first ever Women's Champions League goal as well. Brilliant.
The goal itself was magnificent, and I really think you've got to give so much credit to the pass from Amy Gallagher. If you close your eyes and imagine a defence-splitting pass, this is it. The ball, the first-time pass is brilliant, goes between the defender and the fullback, and there's Murphy Agnew to run onto it. I actually thought that, I was watching the television, I actually thought she'd miscontrolled it. She'd taken one touch too many, but no, brings it under control and just slides it underneath Musovic, the Chelsea goalkeeper. A great goal, and it's just a shame that it only lasted for a couple of minutes, because at that point you're thinking, hang on, I mean, you were there, Martin, you know better. So it's like, hang on, could they actually go and take a result here? But unfortunately, wasn't to be.
Do you know, you're right to pick out that pass, because I have done so many of them in fives, and usually they're not finished off. But brilliant, what a goal that was. And 7,000 fans, I think, being there, it's so good for the women's game to have that many people and hopefully more going forward, but to be able to play in a stadium like that as well. My daughter was just like in awe, thinking, wow, this could be me. It's brilliant.
It's brilliant. If you're going to watch the team you support and you step out and you see them playing on an incredible stadium like Parkhead, it just shows you that if you give these games the prestige that they deserve, then it just encourages people to go back. It looked great watching it on the television. It must have been fantastic to be there. And I'm going to quote Field of Dreams here, but if you build it, they will come. And when you see that, like Celtic taking on some of the best sides in Europe, you can't help not be encouraged to want to go and see it. And we mentioned there about the step up in quality. And when you see Chelsea, I know Chelsea have made a number of changes, but you see how crisply they can pop the ball around. It was like a long evening for Celtic at points, like playing with a bank of 4, bank of 5, like Murphy Agnew up front herself there. But when you see them in full flight, you're just like really, really impressed by it. So yeah, it was a prestige match for the Hoops.
Just in the interest of impartiality, when you said going to see the team you support, I will distance myself from that comment before you get me in some sort of bother. Anyway, let's look forward to this weekend's fixtures. No Premiership because of the international break, of course, but full Championship, League One and League Two cards. Craig, Stenhouse Muirman, I mean, they're hitting headline news here on the Scottish Football Podcast. I know you have your eyes on League One, but we'll focus mainly on the Championship for now. Mm-hmm. We've got a top-of-the-table clash between Livingston and Falkirk to look forward to. That just should be some game, shouldn't it?
Yeah, the way I think you look at the Championship, it's a weird quirk this weekend where it's first versus second, third versus fourth, fifth versus sixth, seventh versus eighth, and ninth versus 10th. But yeah, the obvious fixture to look out for is Livingston versus Falkirk. And already this game has the feeling of a bit of a 6-pointer. There's already a 6-point gap between the sides. And goes without saying, like Livingston win this, they go within 3 points of Falkirk, but Falkirk win this, they open up an enormous gap at the top of the Championship. And dare I say it, if Falkirk win, I think that gap becomes unassailable. The way that the Bairns are playing at the moment, I've said pound for pound, I think they're the best team in Scotland at the moment. I think that the John McGlynn's side are just playing this such an attractive, enterprising, engaging brand of football. There's some absolutely fantastic players. There's the boy Keelan Adams who plays at right back for them. He's going all the way to the top. This guy is an absolute superstar. Signed him from Cumbernauld Colts, and he's come out of nowhere, and he's been absolutely phenomenal. But they're coming up against the Livingston side, and Livingston are one of the few teams to actually take points off Falkirk. They drew when they met each other last time out, 0-0 at the Falkirk Stadium. And Livingston are, I wouldn't say the antithesis of Falkirk, but perhaps not as easy in the eye, a bit more percentage-based, a bit more get it long, hold the ball up, push up from the park there. So it's a bit of a culture clash. So I think it'll be really interesting to see how John McGlynn handles this. But I mean, John McGlynn, so far since he's been at Falkirk, has handled almost everything that's come his way. So I think this has got the makings to be a really fantastic game of football.
It does indeed. It should be brilliant. I'll send on your number to Davy Martindale, though, if he wants to pick up in your scandalous comments there. How do you think Livingston have actually acquitted themselves overall? Because, I mean, it's obviously difficult dropping down to that Championship. We know how hard the league is, but, I mean, they've done well to this point. They have. It's interesting. I watched a David Martindale interview. They beat Greenock Morton a couple of weeks ago, and I watched David Martindale's post-match interview on YouTube, and he said he's always really interesting to listen to. He always comes with a really interesting perspective on the game, and he was talking about how much he prefers being in the Championship to being in the Premiership. He said in the Premiership, all you're focusing on is the other team, how to contain the other team, how to defend, whereas in the Championship, they're able to express themselves a bit more. They can have more fun. They can take the game to them. And I think that he'll obviously be disappointed, because he's disappointed that there's that gap that's opened up between them and Falkirk already, but he will acknowledge that this is a superb opportunity to close it and then try to push on for the title. I think they've done well. A lot of changes at that club over the summer, but they do have a good core there. Like Stephen Kelly's a right good player, and I think the guys that they've signed, like Ryan McGowan, probably one of the standout centre-backs in the division, Stevie May is perhaps not as resourceful a player as he once was, but scored a good goal against Greenock Morton in the SPFL Trust Trophy. He's been quite prolific, so I think he'll be looking to build on that going into this game. Yeah, that's a good lesson for you, though. Never cut your hair or your powers diminish. Third v fourth, Ayr United welcome Queen's Park to Somerset. Just 1 win and 5 for Ayr, including that Challenge Cup defeat to East Kilbride on Tuesday. Scott Brown, he really could do with 3 points, could he not?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen Ayr United at various stages over the course of the season. I saw them in the League Cup against Stennismuir, and I thought that Ayr were excellent, like really, really good. They played with inverted fullbacks, played a style of football I wasn't particularly accustomed to, and they looked really good. And they started the season with so much gusto. I think it was 4 consecutive wins. I saw them on Friday night against Morton in the Championship, and I watched them on Tuesday against East Kilbride. I think they looked really, really poor. Really, really poor, and all that goodness and all that dynamism that they had and that effervescence is just no longer there. I think Brown has got a bit of soul searching to do to try and figure out how the team pulls itself out this tailspin. He's very critical of his goalkeeper Harry Stone after the East Kilbride match. He said that I take responsibility for this defeat. It was me that picked the goalkeeper. And he's chopped and changed his goalie. I think they've used 3 different goalkeepers already this season, which, given the fact that they've played about 20 games, that seems like quite a high number. And I think that if you heard the crowd at the end of that game, there's quite a lot of boos there. And I think supporters' patience is perhaps, I'm going to say wearing thin. Well, it's obviously wearing thin if you react to that. And on top of that, they're taking on Queen's Park, who have had a pretty good season, I think perhaps punching above expectations and had a good win against Dunfermline at the weekend. So I'd actually fancy Queen's Park to win this one. And I think there might be a bit of rancour at full time at Somerset Park at the end of this one.
Yeah, interesting times there. Just briefly, as time is running away on this podcast, as per usual, it's Airdrie visiting Dunfermline. Airdrie, so good last season at the times. It's all going a bit wrong for them just now, hasn't it? And also Dunfermline down there, it's going to be a bit nervy, I would have thought.
Yeah, it really is. Again, this is another 6-pointer. If Dunfermline win this one, they can put a bit of daylight between them. Even more daylight between themselves and Airdrie. And if Airdrie win this, they go within a point of Dunfermline. I think on Airdrie, since Rhys McCabe's come in, it's just been an upward trajectory. However, in the summer, he lost a lot of good, experienced players, and they haven't perhaps been replaced. And on top of that, he's been decimated by injuries. Had absolutely no luck with injuries this season. But the team have got a real problem with scoring goals at the moment. I think that's 6 goals in 13 games, comfortably the lowest in the division. And that's certainly something that needs to be sorted out. Whether or not that gets sorted out with the current forwards they've got, I don't know. I think it's just a case of trying to stay competitive and then looking to sign another striker in January. But they just don't have anyone to stick the ball in the back of the net, to hold it up, to bring others into play. And as a result, the whole team suffers. And as for Dunfermline, they got a pretty good win against Alloa Athletic in the Trust Trophy on Tuesday night. It was 1-0, but by all accounts, it could have been about 4 or 5. They're just quite profligate in front of goal. And I think that's been Dunfermline's problem all season. They're capable of creating chances, but they're not particularly good at taking them. And I think that similar to the Ayr fans towards Scott Brown, I think that perhaps Dunfermline fans are running out of patience a bit with James McPake, and I think he really needs a win here because anything else, and I think the crowd won't be shy in letting him know their thoughts if he doesn't get the win.
Yes, quite. Just very, very quickly, outside the Championship, what other fixtures grabbing your attention? If you say Stenhousemuir v Middlesbrough, we're going to pull it.
No, not at all. Not at all. The game that I actually quite fancy is Clyde versus East Fife. This is Darren Young in search of his first victory as Clyde manager. He replaced Ian McCall. Clyde expected, I actually came on this podcast just before the season started and very confident that 1, Clyde would win the division, and 2, Edinburgh City would finish bottom. They played each other the weekend and Edinburgh City won that match 1-0. So it shows how much I know about the lower leagues. But Clyde are taking on this East Fife team. East Fife have hit a bit of a slump at the moment. They're knocked out the Scottish Cup by Bankside, beaten by Stranraer at the weekend. Another team that's going through a bit of an injury crisis at the moment, Nathan Austin, hurt his shoulder against the Blues at the weekend. So he's not going to be available for this one. And I don't necessarily think they've got anyone in reserve that can kind of step up and do what he does. So it feels like it's the stoppable force meets the movable object at this one. The law of averages say that Darren Young at some point will have to win a match as Clyde manager. So why not this one? Why not this one?
Well, of course, Darren Young, the latest manager to be sponsored by Off the Ball, who were entirely responsible for that appointment, according to them. Anyway, thank you for that, Craig. Scotland's under-19s are currently in the midst of a triple header of European Championship qualifiers. They were beaten 1-0 by Wales yesterday, and they'll play Liechtenstein on Saturday and France on Tuesday. Ahead of the game's head coach, Neil MacFarlane, sat down to speak to my colleague, Iona Ballantyne, about combining his national team role with a similar one at Brentford and the importance of clubs trusting young players.
Neil, thank you so much for joining us.
No, you're welcome.
Now, let's just start with the start of your Scotland job. You're appointed the men's under-19s coach in August. How have you been finding it? How have things been?
I've absolutely loved it. It's been really, really enjoyable. I've seen a real buy-in from the players and the staff since we got together for the first camp in Spain and then progressed to Hungary there, and now we find ourselves at the qualifiers. We've got a terrific bunch of young players and the spirit in the camp is absolutely fantastic. So yeah, thoroughly enjoying it.
It's been a good start, Neil, too. What's it been, 5 games that you've played, 4 wins and a draw?
Yeah, in the first camp in Pinata, we obviously beat Azerbaijan and the Faroe Islands, and then showed that spirit that I was talking about when we played Holland, who are a terrific outfit. Found ourselves 2-0 down just into the start of the second half and got back and got a draw and could have went on to win the game. So that was a really fruitful 10 days in Spain, and then we moved on to the 2 matches against Hungary. Won the first match 2-1 and played well, and then learned little bits from the opening match and played even better in the second games in terms of our performance, and got another 2-1 victory, which puts us in good form, as you said.
Just in terms of the way things are, obviously most of the focus is usually just on the Scotland men's A team and the 21s, but under 19s, this is so important. I mean, how big is this for the 19s, and how important is this stage for them, especially for you as head coach, and seeing them develop through that too?
I think it's a huge step. You know, we have some individuals that are playing first team football in the Scottish Premier League and the English Championship. We've got players out on loan now, so there's boys playing some good first team football at an early age. I'd like to see obviously more and more players at a young age playing first team football. I think that's such an important part of the development, and in the years to come hopefully we'll continue to see that rising. But yeah, it's a huge age group, under 19s. You know, I've been the last 5.5 years working at Brentford in very similar age groups, 19s and 20s and 21 years of age, and it's such an important step between that and first team football, and I'm seeing that here, and it's, as you said, it's such a delicate age in many respects, because there's such a long way to go, and yet the space and time can be like really short. You know, I like to see players at 18, 19, 20 playing first team football if we can, so it's our job as a staff to push the players relentlessly whilst they're here, really get them enjoying the camp, and as I said, the togetherness and the spirit in the camp is really good, and it's a campaign here in the qualifying with these 3 matches that everybody's hugely excited about and looking forward to it. And as I said, we're in really good form, so we should be confident, but we must stay humble and never get below that line of complacency and keep working hard for each other.
Well, let's talk about some of the talent that you've mentioned there. I mean, in the squad, you've got Bailey Rice from Rangers, Rory McLeod from Southampton. I know you've been able to call on Lennon Miller for this one too. That must be brilliant.
Yeah, really good. Now, take Lennon's case in point. Lennon is the one player that I've not worked with in the 2 camps that I mentioned, both in Spain and Hungary. But he comes in again in terrific form. Motherwell are doing a fantastic job with him. They've trusted him and putting him in at such an early age. And he's really responded as well. He's playing some great football. He should be really proud of himself that he's amassed so many games as well. And hopefully his career can go in an upward trajectory. And even this week, I know he knows a lot of the lads from coming through the youth setups with him as well. And he's just added to that spirit that I've mentioned. And he'll add quality as well. And we've also, as you said, the players that you mentioned, and also, as I said, Rudy is playing a lot of games with Hibs at the start of this season as well. He's been really sharp for us when he's been with me in the opening 2 camps. Sadly, we lost Gabriel Forsyth, who'd been playing Championship again, first team with Norwich. But we've added players in that we've seen over the 2 camps that can give us a really good group for what lies ahead this week.
You mentioned all the boys there playing for their first teams and knowing the importance of that. I mean, there was an SFA report recently, it kind of highlighted the lack of game time, first team game time for Scottish under-21 players. Does that make your job more difficult? How do you approach and deal with that?
I think there'll be clubs up here without a shadow of a doubt doing some really, really good things. You need at the top end of the pyramid that within that club to trust the young players, to put them in at such an early age. It's not easy, having worked in first team football as well. It's a very much a results driven business, so it's finding that balance. But I can only go on my experiences. I remember the first coaching role I took up at Falkirk, and the amount of young players that we played, they were all 16, 17, 18, 19. I now look at them now and they've all been playing year after year after year, and now at 26, 27, 28 having really, really good careers. Even when I moved down to England and I was working at Coventry City for 3.5 years, we trusted the likes of Callum Wilsons and James Madisons and threw them in at 16 and 17 and never took them back out of the team. So I have a massive, massive belief in young players. You have to find the balance between that and the experienced players within your group or your starting 11. But if you do so, you can really see a growth, I think, in your football club.
Do you have like a great sense of pride and reward seeing these players, knowing that you've coached them at a young age and seeing their careers develop and coming through the ranks and doing so well?
Yeah, for me, it's all about the player. I'll never change for as long as I coach. I always just have a real empathy for the player. I just want to see him going on and having a really good career. I was fortunate enough to have a good career myself and play football for a long, long time, and it's such an amazing sport to be involved in. And I want to see that for these young players, both here at Scotland or when I'm working at my club at Brentford, or at any other club I've been before or any other club I'll be in the future. I'll always have a real care to see them hopefully go on and have a career. And like I said, if they continue to work hard on a daily basis and show a real good attitude, because attitude's a massive, massive part of anything. If you continue to have that drive within yourself, then I have a real belief that you can go on and, if you're trusted, have a really good career.
Can you tell us more about Brentford? You are head coach of the B team. There is so much positivity around Brentford. What is it like to work there?
It's been absolutely outstanding. The stability of the football club is phenomenal from top to bottom. They have a clear and defined strategy of how we want to operate. Real tight closeness amongst everybody, both staff and players. And for myself personally, having worked with Thomas Frank for the last 5.5 years, we are so close. We work hand in hand with each other with one common goal: to make Brentford as successful as they can be. He's done an unbelievable job to take us from Championship to Premier League, which has naturally seen the club grow. And in that period, naturally what happens is the B team continues to grow with the level of player. Our recruitment is phenomenal down the road and brings in some really, really good talent. And as I said, because we're now a Premier League club, that can continue to grow, and hopefully we can stabilise ourselves in that league for many, many years. But as I said, working hand in hand with Thomas every day, we have so many young players at the club that are doing some terrific things, and that's benefiting the most important thing, which is the first team, because at any football club the first team is the most important. If we can get that right and then we filter it down underneath, then we're in really good fettle as a club.
We spoke about Lennon Miller, the son of Lee Miller. I know at Brentford you did have Romeo Beckham in your ranks, son of David Beckham. What was he like?
The very first time I met him, again what I also spoke about here, was his standards, his demands on himself. And I've always spoke about relationships being both way with the players. He immediately bought into it, like the boys here in the Scotland group are doing. And that's all I ask, that they show that level of commitment every single day. He would have obviously been watching his father grow up, who would have had unbelievable standards under Sir Alex Ferguson at Manchester United, and you could see that in his son. A really good young player, obviously has a lot going on out with in his life, but he handles himself absolutely fantastically. Just a terrific young lad to have around the place, and he's been a breath of fresh air in that respect down the road. I think that we also have a number of other ex-professional fathers whose sons play for us at Brentford over the last 3 or 4 years. It's been countless, and they can feed into their son again what it takes to be a footballer, and then I can obviously hopefully add to that on and off the training ground.
Did you ever have any dealings with David?
Yeah, he's been around many, many times and watched us. I'm very open as a coach. I allow people in to watch the sessions and an analysis session, whatever it be. He came in and watched us a number of times, both in training, came to games, supported his son the way any father would, and he's been fantastic around the place. Really good person, really good family. And as I said, he has continuously done the right things every time he was with us at Brentford, and the boys feed off that down the road. And again here, when we're in Scotland, you mentioned Lennon's and Rudy's and all these ones that are playing first team football. That's great experience to keep filtering into the group as well. And we really are big on our standards here, and they've been fantastic, the boys.
The Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sports Scotland.
Neil MacFarlane there, and that's all we've got time for. Many thanks to Craig Telfer. Thank you for listening. We've also got Friday's View from the Terrace to look forward to as well. Don't forget that. Remember, we're here with new episodes of the Scottish Football Podcast bright and early every day. So to make sure you don't miss out, subscribe on BBC Sounds and have push notifications turned on your phone. Very technical there. Thank you very much for listening. We'll see you next time.
This is the shocking moment English football has been dreading.
My name is Moses Swabu, and I used to be a professional footballer. But then I got in deep with organised crime and became a match fixer operating in the English League.
A match-fixing investigator has highlighted 2 matches he says appear to have suspicious betting patterns.
How honest are you going to be with me?
This is 100%. Join me for Sports Strangers Crimes presents Confessions of a Match Fixer. Listen on BBC Sounds.